Hello and welcome to ET Auto and to this special episode of Target Net Zero, a show which focuses on the key themes of sustainability and carbon neutrality. This is also a special show because for the first time in this series, we have a designer as a guest, and we will discuss about the role of design in sustainability and, of course, carbon neutrality as well. And our guest is Pratap Bose, Chief Design and Creative Officer, Automotive and Farm Sectors at Mahindra Mahindra. Pratap.
Sumanto, thank you so much. Real pleasure to be here. And as you said, I think being a designer in this, or one of the first designers to come to your show, I'm really thrilled.
You are not one of the first designers, but you are the first designer to participate here as a guest. So usually, I mean, when you talk about carbon neutrality, sustainability, mainly from the transportation sector's perspective, more often than not, the discussion gets limited more on the technical side. Powertrain technologies, fuel technologies, EVs, ethanol, this and that.
Yeah.
Of course, they play a very key role
Yeah.
in kind of helping address the global environmental challenges, primarily emissions and all. But designers have a very key role to play as well, right? Because it all starts from the design. Tell us what kind of influence, what kind of contribution can designers make, especially to in this era where we are really focusing sustainability. Focus on sustainability is no longer a choice. And the need for carbon neutrality, the goal towards carbon neutrality. That also, I think, the products that come out from various organizations have really to kind of push the envelope towards carbon neutrality.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sumanto, you're right. It's not a choice anymore. It's something we must address as an industry, as humanity. And you're right also that design is really key in the conception and, of course, creation of these products and services. So, for example, I can give you some very different examples. Some companies, for their web pages, go for black and white because it consumes less energy to load than loading color images. So they've gone to that detail. So everything from a shoe to a super aircraft or a supercar, these thoughts are very central to how you conceive a product. And when you're talking about product conception, that means the birth of the product to the end. There's a life cycle. I think design is involved at each of those phases. And as we talk more, I'm sure we'll touch upon some of them.
Right, and indeed, it cuts across all sectors.
Yeah.
And the role designers can play is perhaps now they have a more responsible role, if I were to kind of put it that way, considering the kind of global challenge that we are facing.
Yeah.
So sticking to the automotive space, your first contribution, first touch in your current role at M&M was the emblem, the logo, exclusively for SUVs.
Yeah.
We all are eagerly looking forward to the Born Electric kind of range, which I believe will start hitting the market late 2024.
Yeah.
Tell us what's the design philosophy that you're approaching, not only in terms of, let's say, the aesthetic appeal, but also from these factors like sustainability.
Yeah. So, as you said, Born Electric, which will come under our Infinity Peaks logo. It's across two brands today. We've showed XUV, E8 and E9, and a new brand called B, which will be a set of 3 or 4 products as well. Right from the beginning, right from the get-go, when you say Born Electric, we were, in the design team, we wanted to create something that when the customer saw these products, they immediately knew it was electric or nothing else. This was not an adapted, it was not modified, it was not any of the above. They were truly, created from scratch as EVs. So we were targeting, Sumanto, a particular look in these products, which is of efficiency, of lightness, of still having the presence that SUVs have. Mahindra SUVs presence is one of our key product attributes, but in a way that you could get a range of products which communicated our sustainable philosophy. And then when you dig a little deeper under the surface, there's things like aerodynamics. So if you look at the B05 or the XUV E9, there's a very, very aerodynamic silhouette. We work extremely hard with our MRV team to ensure that the drag coefficient is the best it can be for our category of products.
Just to put that into perspective, I mean, if you look at any of your products, let's say XUV700, the leading products for your portfolio, how would that compare in terms of the drag coefficient?
So we target a lower one. I'll tell you why. Because in ICE products, you can go and stop at a petrol station anytime you want and refill, right? In an EV product, range becomes critical because the time to charge is usually longer than the time to refill an ICE. So in any case, all our EVs will be more aerodynamic. Like I said, as aerodynamic as they can be without losing, what they are.
Right.
We showed the Thar E in South Africa in August this year. That is a Thar. It's unmistakably a Thar. So, this balance is very interesting of what a brand actually visually stands for, right, and then how we balance it with a sustainable sort of idea or goal. But like I said, if you dig beneath the surface, we are now going to be amongst the first to use, at least in India, some materials which are recycled and recyclable. We are also looking at how we disassemble products because end of life is so important.
Indeed.
So when you talk about disassembly, design already starts talking about assembly. So how you put products together so that they can be disassembled. Yes. So these are now sort of become a natural part of our working process at Mahindra Design and Mahindra Engineering.
You touched upon a very important point of recyclability and recycled products. So can you throw some more light on that in terms of what kind of materials you're using and to what level, let's say, the recyclability of a Mahindra product will go up to with this new range of products that you and your team are currently designing?
I'm not going to be able to share the precise numbers, but what we do is, if there's a material which, for example, doesn't need to be painted, can we leave it in the virgin plastic? That makes it easier to recycle, because if you've got paint on it, you have to strip the paint off. So small steps like that, how can we reduce those complexities to be able to recycle a certain material? Now recycled, we are working with, in fact, when we started this journey, Swanthro, there was no tier 1 supplier in the fabrics, for example, who had anything of what we wanted. Okay. So we are using, PET bottle recycle in our fabrics.
I see.
So these are going to be recycled PET bottles, which we are going to use in our interior fabrics. Never been done in India before. Because of our, let's say, push, the supplier is now developed and developing these materials specifically for us, and you will see this in the Born EV range of products. So just small example. Like I said, in one case it's about recyclability. In the other case it's about recycling.
Right. So, and in this case, this example that we put of seat fabric, I'm sure this while this is a first of its kind in the Indian context, it will definitely not be limited only to Mahindra, and I'm sure that this will be adopted across the industry and thereby kind of enhance the green quotient, how do I say, the green quotient of the ecosystem overall. And these small things also, small yet significant things really go a long way, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, if you look at a particular product line which is doing 120,000 units a year, has a set of 4 or 5 seats, you're talking about 500,000 seat sets in one product line.
In one product line.
So you could have, if a company has 5 or 6 product lines doing 700,000 units a year, you can imagine just in the seats
the kind of
impact you've made in one company. And then, as you said, it's actually great if more companies adopt this.
Right.
And as an industry, therefore, you will make a huge difference. So, it's actually significant. If you save a liter of paint, for example, painting over certain parts of the car, and you can avoid that. Again, if you do the calculation of 1 million cars from one particular company, that could be 1 million liters of paint.
Yes.
And then across the industry, what, 5.5 million cars? That could be 5.5 million liters of paint. So even if you take a small step today, because our industry is substantial, we are the third largest automotive industry in the world, it can make a huge difference.
Right.
It really can. And which is why I'm, in Mahindra Design, we are very passionate about even taking some of these small steps, because we know it adds up to something significant.
This also reminds me, I mean, there are examples, at least one example which I know of a SUV maker in North America, which has an interest in India also, and which I believe will make an entry, launch their first product later this year or early next year, where, this company wants to make the world's most sustainable vehicles, in their words.
Right.
That's their vision. But to start off with, there is example of, let's say, some of the floor mats or something, plastic parts, rubber parts, made out of recycled, discarded fishing nets from the ocean.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So like this, this also gives a kind of very new ideas and new concepts, right? there's an example of used tires, treads from the tire being used on the sill of the hatch or something like that. So and designers play with materials. So what kind of new materials, new ideas, new concepts you're working with, either as a concept or maybe close to production?
Yeah. So beyond materials, we are also looking at how do you reduce the number of parts in a product, right? That itself is a huge step. So in the Thar E that we showed, again, in South Africa in August, we had some of these really more for less sort of ideas. So for example, the Thar E, if you all look at the images carefully, the front bumper and the rear bumper are actually the same. The wheel arches...
Would it be the first in a Mahindra vehicle?
Yeah, for sure. So that was the whole concept, right? That why do you need 2 sets or 3 sets or 4 sets of everything? So the lighting units, we had one lighting unit which we used 16 times around the car. We had one headlamp which we used 4 times. We had 2 wheel arches which
What do you mean when you say one headlamp?
So one single unit, right? Okay. So if you look at a headlamp of a car today, the left is different, the right is different, and the front and back are also different. Right? Okay. So you're doing 4 sets of tools, tooling. So when I say, getting more for less is part of the conceptualization of products. And so that's why I said we have one lighting unit, which we would use in the front and the back. DRLs, we've used one, which we've used 16 times around the car. Wow. The 2 sills where the steps are also left and right common. And a lot of people really appreciated that. And I saw that, especially the feedback we got from design students when they saw some of these concepts. They were like, it's incredible that Mahindra has been able to at least create a concept car showing these ideas, And then, of course, we had many other things. We had some RFID tags or some QR codes that you could scan. You could know exactly what the material of that component was made of, what percent. See, because in cars, many times people don't even know what something is made of. Yeah. Right? What is a bumper made of? What is a door handle made of? So we wanted to sort of, let's say, communicate these details of these materials. Because tomorrow a recycler is going to get this product after, 10 years of its life. They'll need to know what each component is made of, to be able to even recycle that. Right.
And these design concepts were very interesting ones. Well, as you said, not only will reduce the need of tooling various kind of tools, but it will also have, therefore, perhaps will help M&M to offer another lever to price it more competitively, right?
Shumant, you're absolutely right. When you move into
the production cost will be at least, not significantly,
when you move into
some extent less.
What we call a platform or architecture-based solution. So ours is Inglo, as you know. So a lot of the Inglo components across our products are the same. So you don't need to retool, re-engineer. So you waste not only time, effort, money, all of that. You're consuming those resources, right? The more you have to do them.
And you will be emitting that much less carbon also.
So here it's like plug and play solutions. You've got modules. I think Velu's team speaks about it. They've got 16 odd modules, and you configure them almost like a 3D puzzle, right? And you've got your different width and length and battery capacities within Inglo. And then we, in design, put the product, let's say we skin that, but even there we very cleverly reuse components across the products.
Right.
This is very, very fundamentally important. Where it's an absolute brand linked product, we may not, commonize. But where it's, for example, the steering wheel, we've designed one steering wheel which will now go across all the cars. Earlier, that would have been 5 sets of steering wheels, 5 sets of tooling, 5 sets of logistics, 5 sets of storage. Can you imagine all of that?
Yes.
So today, if you are, logistics, head of logistics in Mahindra, and you have to transport steering wheels across the plants, you're doing one type of steering wheel. So you're also reducing complexity. So, a lot of people look at sustainability as an end point. But it's actually a starting point.
Starting point, indeed.
Because if you don't start there, you won't get to that end point.
Yeah, and therefore design. I mean, it all starts with the design, right?
Absolutely.
And also the design process.
Yeah.
As I understand, you're like all key OEMs are moving from the physical to virtual.
Yes.
Adopting the virtual technologies and processes as part of the design journey.
Yeah.
Could you just throw some more light on what new is happening on that front? I know you can't do the entire thing and on virtually, but at least certain iterations are done. And what else is being done increasingly on the virtual side, which not only reduces the carbon footprint of the whole process, but also perhaps has a positive impact on the time to market.
So let me give you, on that note, where we were and where we are.
Yeah.
Where we were as a company or within the industry, from what I call a sheet of paper to a sheet of steel, it would take typically 4.5, 5 years, right? When the day you start and the day a customer gets a key in the hand, that's used to be about 5 years. Today we've crunch that to 36 months. So from 60 months, you've come to 36 months. We are attempting to bring it down to 30. Again, you're not consuming resources in developing a product for 6 years. You're able to do more again within that squeezed time. Now, I always talk about this balance between physical properties and digital properties, and we found a very good sort of balance between the two. We have a global design team, as you know, based in UK and based in Mumbai. We are able to exchange digital data, therefore, very, very quickly. And it becomes, therefore, the core of how we design products. And then, of course, we create the physical clay models for refinement, etc. But there was a time that clay model would have had to physically be transported in a plane or on a ship to come for a review to India, or from India, the whole management team would have had to fly. What we can do now is exchange the digital data in seconds, and either of the studios can create the physical representation of that in weeks. So even there, if you now again multiply that by the number of models that would have physically had to travel, if you multiply that by all the products that we're doing, again, it's a huge saving. It's a huge saving of time, effort, money and resources, ultimately. So,
and how are you kind of extending this beyond the automotive sector? Mahindra is also on the farm side as well on the commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
And are those also getting more greener, so to speak, in terms of this whole design process and the product level also?
Shumantro, in the transportation world, let me put a larger context to it. The design process, yes, has its uniqueness because the customers are unique.
Yes.
So the design process needs to be tuned and tweaked to which sector you're doing, the kind of products. And you missed out LMM, by the way. We also designed
last mile mobility.
Last mile mobility
that
products.
space is becoming more interesting. I'll come to that more, but yes.
Yeah, so we are right across, SUVs, tractors, LMM, Mahindra Truck and Bus. So, we span the entire gamut of products that come from sort of AFS. And we use a very similar design process. So, for example, we did clays for the first time when we did the Oja range of tractors. So we had a very strong digital background and process. And Oja, as you know, is a set of platforms actually. It's 4 platforms and n number of products. So you need that digital capability. But we created models which we actually showed farmers, which we actually clinicked.
Okay.
Even management, much before we produced the product, they could see what it would look like. So I think this balance is important. We use a very similar process, therefore, and we're able to design the tractor in any of our studios, tractor or a LMM product or a trucker bus or a pickup. You saw the Z121.
Indeed.
We designed it in Mumbai. The show car was made in Coventry, and we, no physical or product went across from Mumbai to Coventry. We sent only digital data. We created the model and we sent it to South Africa.
Again, talking about the tractors, you said for the first time the clay model was made.
Yeah.
So earlier, how would that process?
Earlier it would be sort of purely digital on a screen, so you wouldn't really get to know the size, the scale, and don't forget the Oja platform, right from subcompact, compact goes all the way to a large utility tractor. So the scale is very different from the smallest one to the largest one.
Right.
And it was very important for management to know what they're getting across the range. We added DRLs, that was
DRLs in a tractor.
That was one of the,
But they add to the cost of
but
even if, minimal addition, but still add to the cost.
There's
what's the value?
There's a value for money equation, but there's also a money for value equation. Which is when you flip it on its head, that some people are willing to pay you more money for the value that they perceive. Right now, these farmers, when we did some research, they've got cousins in Canada, they've got relatives, in other parts of Europe. They, on their phone, can see what is the latest tractor anywhere in the world. Today, when they're in their farms or in their city or town or village, they are seeing SUVs driving through with DRLs. And they said, why can't a tractor have that level of aspiration? And yes, while it was cost, it was something worth doing, because we are seeing people now paying money for that value. So when they drive or when they pull up in an Oja, it's like pulling up in our XUV 700, right? Someone in fact told me that your Oja is like the 700 of the tractor world, which is exactly what we wanted. The paint quality, if you see, the care we've taken in the graphics and the branding, it goes a long way, and people may not be able to point it out, but it all adds up.
So you are saying that because there is no borders for aspirations to flow from urban to rural, therefore why should design stop?
That's right.
In products which are more urban oriented, right?
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because, see, the phone has taken away, forget urban and digital, it's taken away national. Right? I can click on an image and I can see a tractor in North America, in Europe, in South America, anywhere in the world.
Right.
And, if I was one of the farmers, I would say, look, I want the best product I can buy here. So we take of course, we deal with all the basics. So don't get me wrong, it's not about only aesthetics. It's of course, this person who's operating the tractor, how can we make it easier for him or her? How all the transmission, all the levers, all the controls, the pedals, the ergonomics as we call it, that's absolutely perfected over time. That all the controls are within reach, because if you're driving for 8, 10, 12 hours continuously and you can't reach a lever which you have to reach, let's say 40 times a day, it becomes a pain. Literally a pain. You have to think about
the issue with the product.
You have to therefore rethink everything. And Oja is a great example of how we've done that. Swaraj Target is one of them, Naya Swaraj. So if you see all these, and personally for me, I think farm equipment and tractors are very, very interesting, because they have a real deep sense of product design.
Another factor there from the consumer's perspective is that the word of mouth there is perhaps can have a more stronger impact on the brand.
Absolutely. And I forgot to mention, on the digital side, with our apps, in the farm sector, I mean, we are able to, or the farmer or the tractor owners are able to to check the fuel, how much the tractor has done in a day, how many hours it's worked, what was the downtime, when is the maintenance. I mean, so even on that side, it's just because it's a rural product, it doesn't mean that, the farmers can't use our app. It's amazing. And by the way, to create the app, our UI UX team within Mahindra Design worked with the business to create the app so that it's super user friendly.
Okay.
Because of the target that we are addressing, so usability. So we go down now to that detail, right? So design is really a end-to-end service provider to the business.
And you touched upon last mile mobility,
yes.
which is an emerging business in the Mahindra Group. And the mobility space is really transforming. And also much of it because of the growing awareness about sustainability, carbon neutrality and all. So therefore, there's a growing also, I would assume that there's a growing number of customer base, growing customer base of people who would think that, okay, if I need to move around in my city, why do I need to lug around, be one or two people, one person or two people in a 1.5 or 1.8 ton vehicle?
Yeah.
So why not have a kind of mobility option which is greener, less carbon footprint in terms of dimensions also?
Yes.
So therefore, are you kind of looking at new options which may or may not be existing in existence today as mobility for the last mile mobility
I think,
application?
like you said, there's a large sort of untapped world out there, right? And if you know anything about Suman Mishra, who's our CEO of LMM, you had her on your show, she wants every mile or every last mile that anyone does, goods or services or people, to be in a LMM product. That's her ambition. And to support that ambition, therefore, we are looking very carefully at what we do next in LMM. And you have, let's say, electric buses. The metro is by and large, or is completely electric as well, right? Runs on electricity. So those are already sort of green options. Now, why should the last mile not be a green option? I think your end-to-end, door-to-door journey should be green. And I think the first mile and the last mile is where Suman and her team and her products can play, right? Because I think the bit in the middle, the larger products, buses and, like I said, buses and the metro rail system, those are by and large, sort of moving into sort of green tech already. But I think it's a great opportunity to do the first and last mile.
We are all equally waiting for the production version of the Atom.
Okay.
But tell us, designers always draw inspiration from a range of sources, from nature to architecture to whatnot.
Yes.
In your own case, the XUV 500 was
from a cheetah.
From a cheetah. There was another which was from a shark. But now, what are the inspirations for you and your team?
So Sumantra, what we've done is we deal with design as a house of brands. We have 4 + 1 brands, so Thar, Bolero, Scorpio, XUV, and B. So we have 5 brands, and each brand will go or grow beyond one product, right? So today already you have Bolero Classic, Bolero Neo, you have Scorpio Classic, Scorpio N, your Thar 3-door, 5-door, and we've previewed the EV. So each, let's say, house will grow in terms of the number of products and the offering. And therefore, each house will get a dedicated design language. There will be a Mahindra that ties them all across, but vertically, a Bolero will always be a Bolero, for what it is. It's this monolithic, really solid, carved from a solid block of steel, for example. Thar will always be iconic. That when you see a Thar from anywhere, any distance, you recognize instantly it's a Thar. The XUV house is about athleticism. So when you look at a 300 or you look at a 700, it visually talks about performance. So, those are the way we are actually looking at design now. To service these 5 brands. A B will always be a B, You look at it, it's a B. So Yeah, so we are working hard, and you'll see as we go along, launch new products, how each house of brands is expanding and will have a language which is instantly recognizable. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. I went to one of the dealers, when I just joined, and of course the sort of waiting period for the Thar was long. So I said, I told one customer, why don't you buy a Scorpio? He said, no, I'm a Thar customer and I only want a Thar. So that's when I realized that each product house,
the brand pull,
the brand, so there's no real Mahindra customer. Yeah. There's actually a brand customer. A 700 guy or girl will only want a 700.
Doesn't matter if he or she has to wait a few months longer.
Yes, exactly. If there's a Scorpio N available, they won't switch. And this is why you have the waiting list for the products. And I thought that was really an amazing sort of insight for me personally, because I thought, okay, it's a Mahindra, you can buy whichever you want, and whatever's available first. It's not like that. There's some very, very strong brand affiliation and loyalty.
Some interesting customer insights there. Talking about Thar, the Thar concept which you showcased on August 15th in South Africa. I mean, from the first looks, it's also quite a departure from the design philosophy of the Thar so far. So, what were the kind of driving factors for that?
So, we've been making a Thar or Thar-like product, since 1947. It's obviously got a lineage. The thing I told the design team, as we were trying to finalize the design cues for each brand pillar, I said to the design team that what if Thar were to be designed today and didn't exist before today, and it was born in the electric age, what would that look like? Okay. And I gave them some attributes of strength, of sort of boxiness, of presence. It was based on those attributes that we designed the product, based on some very core Thar DNA that we designed this product. And not necessarily drawing from what we've done.
From the lineage.
Yeah. So I said, if we were EV first today as a Thar, what would it look like? So that's how we came up with this. And it, a lot of people identified it to be a Thar. So, in some of the design reviews shown through, I'll give you a little bit of inside info. We actually didn't put a brand on it. Okay. When we show a clay model to the management, you usually have the graphics and you write, whatever the product is. So we didn't write anything, because I wanted to test that what would the management say when they saw this. So of course we took the covers off, and Vijay, Rajesh, Velu, part of our design committee, they looked at it as, wow, that's a Thar. So it came spontaneously. It was unaided. I had no presentation, nothing. Okay. We literally revealed the model. And
so it was a validation of sorts for your design team?
Exactly. Instantly, they recognized it as a Thar. But they said it's so different, but it's still a Thar. What did you all do? So I think when you design based on some core principles rather than some aesthetic elements, you get something which is truly deeper and has that, carries that DNA.
Interesting. Good to know. As we approach the end of this show, we also want to understand, usually in the engineering side, when you have a global presence, global teams, there are COE, Centers of Excellence. So in your case, you have one team in India, one in Europe. So what are their respective areas of excellence, so to speak, in terms of which then come together to form these products?
Yeah, so for example, the 4 existing brands, we usually handle out of our Mumbai studio, right? Because these are the girls and guys who really truly know what a Bolero is or what a Scorpio is, right? When we had to start or establish the principles of the new brand B, that's the challenge I gave to the UK team, because they had no baggage. They had literally, they didn't even know what India was, right? I've hired so many of them who've not even traveled here. But we said, look, the vision is an exciting, sustainable set of products which have to have this presence, and they are Mahindras at the end of the day. And then they came up with 5, 7, and 9, and it surprised everyone, even internally, that how they captured something which was so Mahindra in terms of strength and presence, but yet was totally out there. So that's how we deal with it. You just sometimes you swap it around so that you challenge people. But I think that's sort of my true role. How you make these 200 people work together to achieve something
And
which
get
is
the best of both worlds, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
So you have a team of about 200 people altogether.
Roughly, yeah, altogether, all in. And we have Pininfarina, which we use, as you know, for some specific programs. Pininfarina is an independent company, but and they can do automotive projects as well. It's a very unique sort of arrangement in that sense. But we've used them recently for another very exciting product. I can't tell you, but so we use them on that sort of basis.
So they come for more exclusive programs, is it?
Yeah, on a project basis. This is the Pininfarina design team. Yeah.
Lastly, Pratap, since our core theme of discussion today is sustainability and carbon neutrality, of course, what's the range and scope of influence that designers can further make in the near, mid, and long term?
No, that's a very good question. And I gave you the small example of the fabric, for example, didn't exist in India in any of our supply sort of chains, because we wanted it so, it was so core to what we were doing with, Born Electric, those 5 products. Our supply or our strategic sourcing team spoke to the supplier, they convinced them to actually set up a line for creating that in India. And we want to do that more and more. Again, Sumantro, I think too many of our plastics are painted, because customers expect a certain shine, gloss, finish. We are working very hard to move away from that as and where possible. Again, that requires a process. It requires a change in how the company onboard suppliers. It requires suppliers to have the capability. So when we start doing that, it has a real deep effect, right down the chain. And as you said earlier, if we are able to bring some of those technologies, processes to India, it would be great if others also use that, because it would just make the pie larger. It would make it more viable for a tier 1 or a tier 2 to invest even, right? Because we are today assuring some volumes, but if the industry did that, it would be easier for people to come in. We are looking at chromium-free leather. We are looking at actually not using any leather at all. We are again going into a plastic-based material which feels and looks and smells like leather, but can be recycled.
And also the other trend of chrome and more chrome, I think that will also kind of taper down now because of the environmental impact that chrome has.
Yes. In fact, we have very little chrome left on most of our products. A lot of people, advise me against it. So there are in some really sort of jewel-like elements, but we've reduced that because the process, as you know, isn't the most environmentally friendly. But beyond that also, when you talk about Scope 3 regulations, which are now coming in, your entire supply chain, tier 1, tier 2, etc., also has to be compliant. So that's another thing we as an OEM will have to push down deep into our supply chains, and this is what the teams are working on, and that's great actually.
Indeed, considering that Mahindra and Mahindra at the group level has set 2040 as the target to go carbon neutral.
And then about our plants, we recycle water, there's renewable energy, we have Mahindra Sustain, who does a lot of work with our plants. So, all of that is very carefully being managed so that we can be, like I said, as sustainable as possible, as viable for us today. But we are always pushing that boundary. Going back to the original sort of intent of your question, we are pushing that boundary that we are not sort of happy. So today this fabric is 50% recycled PET bottles. I want to make it one day, 80 and then 100. Fully recycled. You give the fly net or the fishing net example as well. So there are areas which are emerging. We look at other industries. The shoe industry or the sportswear industry is actually the pioneer in bringing on board these materials. Right. If you look at any pair of sneakers today, they'll have 6 or 7 of these different materials recycled in the sole or in the upper or whatever, and we look at those as a part of
some brands have tie-up with tire brands also for the sole.
So as a part of our sort of design trend research, we analyze all of this and we see what we can bring. Automotive has a certain set of requirements which are different, but as far as possible, we're pushing to bring all of this into our products.
On that note, thank you very much, Pratap, for sharing such interesting insights and also highlighting the role or the influence designers can make in the industry's drive towards sustainability and carbon neutrality. Time always runs out when we have a conversation, but till we meet again, Pratap, and thank you for watching this very interesting conversation with Pratap Bose, Chief Design and Creative Officer of Mahindra & Mahindra's automotive and farm sectors. Till we meet again on another episode, take care and goodbye.